Good afternoon. Welcome in the class. As you know, today we are going to discuss John Locke's second treatise, treatise on government. So we will discuss chapter 9. Chapter 9 is on the ends of political society and government. So it is point 1 to 3 if you see in the original text. The reason for giving up freedom. Here, John Locke discusses why people give up freedom, what is the reason behind it. A person in the state of nature is very free. In the state of nature, there's no government, there's no law, there's no police, and the people are absolutely free in the state of nature. But then they form a state, they form a government, they make laws, they establish law enforcement agencies including police, military, and others, and then they have to abide by those laws. They give up their freedom which they had in the state of nature. He is the complete master of his own body in the state of nature, and he is the complete master of his possessions. He is equal to the greatest person, and he is controlled by no one. No one controls man in the state of nature. So, why would he give up this freedom and power? Why would he agree to be ruled by another power, the governmental power, the state power? The answer is simple and clear. Even though he has all those rights in the state of nature, enjoying them is very uncertain. So, this is the first reason why people choose government, why people make state, and why people do not live in the state of nature. Because their rights are uncertain. Their freedom, their possessions can be attacked, their lives can be attacked. He is always at risk of other people invading his space and property. In the state of nature, man is always at risk of other people invading his space and invading his property. Everyone in that state is as much a king as he is. So, in the state of nature, everyone is like a king. All people are equal to him in the state of nature, but most people do not strictly follow fair rules and justice. So, because there's no authority in the state of nature, most people do not strictly follow fair rules. Most people do not strictly follow justice. Because of this, the property he owns is very unsafe and completely insecure. So, property in the state of nature is very unsafe and completely insecure. This makes man want to leave this condition. So, the man living in the state of nature wants to leave it because of because there is no safety. Even though it is a state of freedom, it is full of fears and constant dangers. So, although the state of nature is a state of freedom, it is full of fears. People fear each other, and there are constant dangers to their lives, to their property. Therefore, it is sensible for him to look for and join a society with others. So, it was sensible, it made sense that people living in the state of nature, They should form a society and they should live together. These others are either already united or want to unite. They join together to mutually protect their lives, to protect their freedoms, and protect their estates, their possessions. So, people living in the state of nature, they come out of the nature, they form a society to protect their lives, freedoms, and estates. John Locke says, I call these things by the general name property. So pay attention. John Locke, the definition of property, according to John Locke, property includes lives, freedoms, and estates. So property, the concept of property is very broad in John Locke's theory, political theory. Property also includes lives and freedoms. The next point is the main purpose of government. What is the main purpose of the government? The great and chief reason why people join together into countries or commonwealths is the preservation of their property. So countries are can also be considered as commonwealths. Any country is a commonwealth of the people living in it. So the great and chief reason why people join together into countries is the preservation of their property, protection of their property. The state of nature is missing many things. The state of nature is missing many things needed for this preservation. Because in the state of nature, there is no police, there are no courts, there are no law enforcement agencies. So the preservation of property is not possible. Firstly, a fixed, agreed upon, known law is missing. In the state of nature, there is no fixed law. There is no agreed upon law which is known to the people. It is missing. This law must be accepted by everyone as the standard for what is right and what is wrong. It must be common way. It must be the common way to settle all disagreements between people. So law, any law which is available, it must be the common way. Law must be the common way to settle all disagreements between people. So disagreements must be settled by law, not by force. The law of nature is clear and easy to understand for all sensible people. However, people are often influenced by their own interests. Although people know the law of nature, but sometimes they ignore the law of nature because of their interests. They are also sometimes ignorant of the law because they haven't studied it. So sometimes people don't understand the law of nature. So they are not likely to accept it as a binding law when applying it to their own problems. So, law of nature requires justice and harmony. But since some of the people do not understand it and they do not accept it, so they do not apply it to their own problems. They may want to apply it to others, but they do not want to apply it to themselves. The next point is the need for an impartial judge. Secondly, the state of nature lacks a known and neutral judge. Number one, the state of nature lacks a known law, common law. Secondly, the state of nature lacks a judge, judge who is neutral and who is known. In the state of nature, people don't know any judge. This judge needs the authority to settle all differences according to an established law. This judge needs the authority to settle all differences according to an established law. In that state, every person is both the judge and the punisher of the law of nature. In the state of nature, every person is the judge and every person is the punisher, punishes anyone who violates the law of nature. People are often biased towards themselves. In the state of nature, people are often biased. Strong feelings like passion, like revenge, can make them go too far in their own cases. So, in their own cases, they are biased towards themselves, they are biased against others. They act with too much anger, they act with too much heat. At the same time, they are often careless and they are often unconcerned about other people's cases. They, in the state of nature, they are only concerned with their own problems, their own interests. They are not concerned about other people's, the interests of the others. This makes them too lenient in punishing the actions of others. So they punish others harshly. The next point is the lack of enforcement power. So, in the state of nature, mainly three things are missing. Number one, a law is missing. Number two, a judge is missing. Number three, an enforcement power is missing. Thirdly, the state of nature often lacks the power to back up and support a sentence when it is right. So, when a judge gives punishment, gives sentence to a criminal, there has to be an enforcement authority. There has to be police, for example, to implement the sentence, to implement the punishment, to enforce the punishment. There is often no power to make sure the sentence is properly carried out. In the state of nature, there is often no power to make sure the sentence is properly carried out. Those who have done wrong by being unfair will almost always use force to defend their injustice if they can. So the powerful cannot be punished in the state of nature because there is no law, there is no judge, there is no enforcement authority. This kind of resistance often makes the punishment dangerous. It can even be destructive to those who try to carry it out. So, if a weak person tries to punish a strong person in the state of nature, even he can even be uh, treated even more badly. The next point is driven into society. Men are driven into society out of the state of nature. So, even with all the privileges of the state of nature, human life is in a poor condition while people stay in it. In the state of nature, human life is in a poor condition. People are quickly forced to move into a society. So they are not satisfied with their life in the state of nature. So they move into a society, they form a society. Because of this, we rarely find any large group of people living in the state of nature for long. So that is why we don't see any people who don't have any government, who don't have any state. All people in all parts of the world, they have their state, they have their government, they have their laws, they have their judges, they have their enforcement authorities. The problems and dangers they face come from the random and uncertain way everyone uses their power to punish others. The problems and dangers people face in the state of nature come from the random and uncertain way everyone uses their power to punish others. This makes them seek safety under the established laws of government. So, in the state of nature, all people use their power to punish others, so they are not safe. So, it makes them seek safety. They seek safety by establishing laws, by establishing governments. They look to the government to protect their property. This is why they willingly give up their personal power to punish. So, since they have established laws, they have established governments, now they don't have the power to punish others. Now, only the government can punish. Only the government have the coercive authority. Only the government has the right to use force. Now, citizens, now common people under governments, they do not have the right to use force against anyone. They agree for this power to be used only by the person or people appointed to do it among them. So, people appointed by the government can, only the people who are appointed by the government can punish the criminals, can punish those who violate the law. This power will be used according to the rules that the community agrees on, or those they authorize agree on. Here, we see the original right and rise of both the law-making power and the law enforcing power. So, law-making power is legislative, and the law enforcing power is the executive. Executive implements the laws. The laws are made by the legislature, the legislative assembly, legislative authority. It is also the original right and rise of governments and societies themselves. The two powers given up. In the state of nature, a person has two main powers. The first power is the freedom to do whatever he thinks is needed to preserve himself and others within what the law of nature allows. So, in the state of nature, people are free. Through this law, which is common to everyone, he and all others are one great community. They form one society, separate from all other creatures. If it were not for the badness and wrongdoing of corrupted people, there would be no need for any other society. So, since in some people are bad, some people do wrong things, some people are corrupt. So, it needs further legislation and institutions. There would be no need for people to separate from this great natural community and form smaller groups. So, this is why people need to form states. States are smaller groups than the overall humanity. If we take all humans as a group, as a community, then states are subparts. States are sub communities, smaller communities than that human group. So, states are smaller groups than the human group. There would be no need for people to separate this from this great natural community and form smaller groups. The other power a person has in the state of nature is the power to punish crimes committed against the law of nature. In the state of nature, the people had these two powers. He gives up both of these powers when he joins a particular political society. So, when a person joins a state, he gives up these two powers to punish others. He joins a country that is separate from the rest of mankind. So when a country is established, when a commonwealth is established, uh, a separate group is formed, which is separate from the rest of mankind. Giving up the first power, that of doing whatever he thought fit for his preservation and the preservation of mankind, is given up. The first power is given up. The first power is doing whatever he thought fit for his preservation and the preservation of mankind. It is given up to be regulated by laws made by the society. This is done only so far as is needed to preserve himself and the rest of that society. These laws made by society often limit the freedom he had under the law of nature. So, in the state of nature, the man was free to do anything to punish others as he thought fit. But when people form a society, when people form a state, they give up this freedom. Giving up the second power. Secondly, man completely gives up the power of punishing. He pledges his natural force, which he used to employ to carry out the law of nature by his own authority. Man pledges his natural force, which he used to employ to carry out the law of nature by his own authority. He pledges this force to assist the society's law enforcing power as the law requires. So, law enforcing power means executive power. He is now in a new condition where he gets many benefits in the state of society. In the state, man is now in a new condition where he gets many benefits. He gains help and protection from the labor, assistance, and strength of others in the same community. Now there are many institutions, many people connected to him, and uh, he can talk to them for help, for assistance. Because of this, he must also give up as much of his natural freedom regarding providing for himself as the well being, success, and safety of the society demands. So, people who join a state, who join a commonwealth, they must also give up as much of their natural freedom regarding providing for themselves as the well being, success, and safety of the society demands. This is not only necessary, but it is fair. This is because the other members of the society are doing the same thing. The limits of government power. When people enter society, they give up the equality, they gave up freedom and law enforcing power they had in the state of nature. They put this power into the hands of the society. The lawmaking body can then use this power as the good of the society requires. The lawmaking body can then use this power as the good of the society requires. However, every person only does this with the goal of better protecting himself, his freedom, and his property. Every person only does this with the goal of better protecting himself, his freedom, and his property. Every person joins the society, every person joins the state, every person joins the commonwealth to protect himself, to protect his freedom, and to protect his property. This is the chief goal of joining a society or joining a state. It is not reasonable to think that a person would choose to make his condition worse. Now, look, it is very important. Why state is formed? Why governmental authority is found? Why laws are made? They are made to preserve one's life, to preserve one's freedom, to protect one's possessions. So it does not allow any state, the state has no authority to take life of any of the citizen, to take freedom or to take possessions of any of its citizens without any justification. So the first uh, duty of the state, the first duty of the society is to protect the life, to protect the freedom, to protect the possessions of the citizens. So, protection is the first duty of the state, of the governmental authority. Therefore, the power of the society or the lawmaking body can never extend further than the common good. So, the state is formed for the common good of the citizens. Government is formed, the laws are made for the common good, for the common safety of the people. The government is absolutely required to secure everyone's property. So it is the duty of the government to protect the property of and every citizen. The government must do this by fixing the three defects mentioned earlier that made the state of nature so unsafe and difficult. So we have discussed there were three things were missing in the state of nature. There was no law, there was no judge, there was no enforcement authority. So these were the three defects in the state of nature. When people form a state and the government, it is the duty of the government to address those three defects. The lawmaking or supreme power of any country is therefore bound to govern by fixed standing laws. So it is the first duty of the government to make laws to protect the life, liberty, and possessions of the people. The first of all, the government should make laws. These laws must be published and known to the people. So there should be no hidden laws. Every law has to be public. All the people should have the right to know the laws of the government. The government must not rule by temporary orders or by sudden orders. The government must not rule by temporary or sudden orders. It must use neutral and honest judges. These judges must settle disagreements using those established laws. You know, there are many theories in this. We are discussing many theories. Theory of justice is there, theory of government is there, the theory of law is discussed. So there are many theories. These judges must settle disagreements using those established laws. The government must use the force of the community at home only to enforce those laws. So the government can use the force to enforce the laws. It must use its force abroad only to prevent or correct harm from foreign attacks. This force is also used to protect the community from invaders. All of this must be directed towards no other goal than the peace, safety, and public good of the people. So, all force which the government has, the force of law, the force of enforcement authorities, the government should use it for the peace, safety, and public good of the people. So, we have discussed chapter 9. It is chapter 10 of the forms of a commonwealth. So, I think it should be enough for today, and we can discuss chapter 10 in the next class. Uh, I am closing my presentation on YouTube and I join you back on Google Meet.